Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Sportslook, the sports television program for the high plains of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. I'm your host, Doc Elder, and just like farmers in the springtime, we are going to be breaking ground tonight. We're going to have an entire episode where we're going to have a men's basketball player, Jose Serrano, a women's basketball player, Laura Rowe, and we're going to have them at the same time for the entire episode. So without further ado, let's clear the set and let's bring in Jose and Laura right now. Welcome back to Sportslook, and we are breaking ground here today. We have never had a women's basketball player and a men's basketball player on the same set at the same time. So Laura Rowe, Jose Serrano, you guys are making history.
Sweet, sounds good.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
It's our pleasure. Laura, we've had the pleasure of getting to know you a little bit, but for people who may not have ever heard a radio broadcast or a television broadcast, where are you from and what was the process that got you to play basketball at Eastern?
Oh man, I'm from Katy, Texas. It's just west of Houston. I have played basketball my entire life, played basketball for Katy High School, and then I decided to go to Abilene Christian University in Abilene, Texas, and I was there for a year before I decided to transfer and ended up out here at Eastern New Mexico because I loved the people, I loved the program, I loved how Coach Prock really takes care of his girls, and I felt that that was something that was really important to me. So.
All right. Well, Jose, we'll ask you the same question. Where are you from originally and what got you to Eastern?
Well, it's a long story, but I'm from Venezuela. That's South America. The state is called Barinas, and the city is also called Barinas. So it's Barinas, Venezuela. So I originally came here after playing with the national team back home, U15, U14. Some scouts watched the games, and they asked me if I wanted to try it out in the U.S. And you know, being from outside the U.S., you want to come here and try to hopefully make it to the NBA. That's the goal and the dream. And you see everything on TV, and that's what you want to be. So I was lucky and blessed enough to get the opportunity to come here and play high school at a local high school in San Diego. No, at a private high school in San Diego called Balboa Prep. I got there when I was 16. Played there as a sophomore until I was a senior. Then from there, I got a lot of D2 offers, but my coach had suggested go to a junior college, and I did went to a local junior college in San Diego, California. Played my 2 years there. Sadly, my last year, after I finally got the Division I offer that I was trying to get, I tore my ACL my sophomore year, 13 or 12 games in. So I was one game off for getting my medical redshirt too. So I basically lost the whole year, not knowing what to do in that situation where I lost all the offers that I previously had. And it was just some guys mingled there like, oh, we'll stay in contact. Let me know how you're recovering. Let me know how your leg is doing. We'll talk. And then I actually committed to a Division II school up in Washington called Saint Martin, I think. They did really good this past year. And I committed, I signed the letter, but when I was about to head there, the head coach transferred. He got a Division I job offer, he took it. So I was left there with like half of the team transferring on that school. So I was like, okay, what are my other options? The coach from Eastern, Coach Sig from last year, I really got to know him because he really tried hard to recruit me. Like, oh, we want you here. You're going to be okay, blah, blah. And he did everything. He lived up to what he said. I already knew him, so I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to him, see if he still has a spot available for me. And that's how I ended up in Eastern. That's how I came to play here.
Very good. Laura, we'll go back to you. Was basketball always your sport growing up?
I loved basketball, but I was also a swimmer. I loved to swim. I started summer swim team when I was about 4 years old. And I swam until I left for college. And I loved it. It was fun, but I loved basketball a little bit more, so I decided to go with basketball during my high school years. I couldn't do swim and basketball at the same time. The seasons interfere a little bit too much.
What
But,
was your best event?
breaststroke. Yeah, I was the little breaststroke swimmer from Katy.
It's interesting, give you a little Doc Elder story. I was a high school coach from 1974 to 1983, and one of the sports I coached was girls swimming. My best swimmer ever, a girl who got a college scholarship, was breaststroke. So
Oh, that is so neat.
Yep.
That's awesome.
it is
Very
a small world.
coincidental.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Well,
awesome.
Jose will ask you the same question. Was basketball always your sport?
No, my dad really wanted me to play baseball. He will always say that's where the money's at. And you know, coming from Venezuela, where we have a lot of baseball players playing the MLB, what is it called, MLB?
MLB, yes.
MLB, yeah. I tried it for like 2 weeks. It wasn't my thing. I was really in love with soccer, actually. I played soccer since I can remember, actually. I would play with my friends. Then I played until I was, I think, 11. That's when I switched to basketball because I had a lot of respiratory problems, and over there it's so hot sometimes during certain times of the year where the courts or the fields will dry up and it will be just sand, and it was just so bad for me. I would have to go to the hospital like after every season because I had some sort of bronchitis going on. My dad was a professional basketball player, but he never actually told me to play basketball.
Wow.
Which is,
Well, it's interesting because the question I was going to ask you is who are the influences on you basketball-wise, and I guess he's probably a pretty good influence.
well, he didn't, you know, that's one thing I appreciate about my dad. He wasn't the type of dad that like, you're going to play this and I'm going to teach you. And because that's what I'm thinking hopefully when I have a kid. I have already a daughter. I just recently got a daughter.
Oh, congratulations.
But I was thinking when I get a boy, I'm just going to train him. But now that I have my daughter, I realize that I just want her to be as happy as she can and have her be able to make her own choices. And my dad was like that with me, which I appreciate. Once he realized I got serious with basketball, he was like, okay, now you got to do this, you got to do that. And he was teaching me everything he knew. So it was fun for me. It was a very fun experience.
Well, Laura, from a conversation that we had before we actually went on mic, I understand there was a pretty good basketball player in your family.
Yes, sir. My mom played college basketball at University of Houston, and so I guess she was a really big influence in my life, but I've had so many over the years. I played AAU basketball for 8 years with the same coach, Coach Ted, and he has done so much for me. Along with my dad, both of them have just pushed me to be the best player that I can be. My mom was always having free throw shooting contests with me. That was our thing, and it still is. Every time I go home, she's like, all right, best 1 out of 10. I'm like, okay, Mom, whatever. So.
Yeah, I haven't been able to beat my older son in a game of one-on-one for a while, but I can still beat him shooting free
Yeah,
throws, so that's the one thing I
she's
can
like,
do.
I'm not going to beat you in one-on-one, but I'll beat you shooting free throws.
Well, Laura, what sort of adjustments did you have to make coming out of Katy? You averaged, if I remember correctly, over 20 points a game in high school, but what adjustments did you have to make going from the high school to the college game?
I think it's different. College basketball is a lot different than high school basketball because usually everyone that plays college basketball was a star at their own high school. And it's more, you have a lot more talent in the same team than you do at a high school where they're not recruiting, they're not bringing in people, they're not playing people. So I think the biggest thing for me was just to learn how to trust other people to do their job on the court. And it's been fun. I mean, it's so much fun to see someone, if you pass them the ball, give them a nice assist, and they make the shot or whatever. I think that's one of the most rewarding things.
Jose, I'm going to ask you the same question, and it was interesting. I've known you for 2 years now, and I did not know that you had prepped in San Diego because I got my PhD from the University of California, San Diego, and I lived right across the street from La Jolla Country Day School, which at the time was a pretty good basketball school. What was the adjustment that you had to make going from high school to college?
Oh, you know, it's different for me, I guess, because when I was back home, you know, FIBA basketball is different. So I have to make like 3 adjustments. Coming from FIBA to high school, which was very different. Going to college, it was a whole different change. So I guess to me, physically, guys were stronger, faster. So I realized that I'm not trying to beat them with speed or strength. I was trying to understand the game. So I really focused on watching myself playing, watching film, understanding the help side, see where can I make a pass, see why would it, when I make a mistake, why didn't this pass work, and stuff like that. So just, I guess, elevating my IQ was one big change that I have to do, because in high school I was so strong and tall and athletic that I could just run through people and dunk, and I wasn't actually understanding the game. I was just using my physical abilities, if it makes sense.
Laura, let's go back to you. And you talked about this briefly, but I'd like you to elaborate. You talked about Coach Prock, what you saw. What was the actual process by which he sold you on Eastern and you sold him on, if I come to play, I can make a contribution?
Oh man, I guess the biggest thing for me was that I loved how personal he was. The Basketball Moms program is something that when he told me about it, I was like, wow, I really love that. I'm gonna be pretty far from home. Like, I brought my horse to college with me, and Charles and Beverly Bennett are my basketball parents, and they have done so much for me, and I am so grateful for them. So I guess for me, it was the basketball parents. I loved how Coach Prock always took care of his girls. I talked to every single one of them before I came here, and they all kind of said the same thing. They said, he's gonna take care of you no matter what happens. If you need anything, it doesn't matter what time of day or night it is, you can always give him a call, and he's gonna do whatever he can do to help you in any situation that you're in. And that was something that I really felt like I needed at the time, and I did need it. College is hard, and playing a college sport is hard. And I really loved how personal he was with his girls and took care of them no matter what happened.
Okay, but I have to rewind for a second. You were a swimmer and a basketball player, and you were an equestrian?
Yeah, I was. I did.
How did you have time to do all that?
It was hard. It was a lot of fun. I have always loved horses growing up, and I finally got my first horse when I was a freshman in high school, and it's kind of snowballed since there. I've been through a few, and the two horses that I have now, I will probably always have. One of them back home is just a big pet. He loves to give little kids rides and eat snacks, and my horse up here just has a big personality, and it's a lot of fun to be around him.
There you go. Well, Jose, your situation is a little bit different in that you were recruited here by one coach. We've got a new head coach now. And so what he had to do was he had to convince you why you had come back to Eastern. But he also had to see something in you that would say, this is why I want to sell the kid on the program. So what was that process like?
So once we started talking, and once we clicked in on what his offense was going to be, his system, and what he needed, because for the type of offense he's going to play, you always need a skilled forward that can shoot the ball. And he doesn't. I realized this is more like on, I guess, selfish take, if you want to call it. I realized that the school, our program, our team will not have a player with those like characteristics, that he can shoot and be skilled and make passes. So from that sense, I was like, okay, this is going to work for me individually, because I'm going to be able to play, hopefully, because a lot can happen, knock on wood. Hopefully I'm going to be able to play more minutes than last year, because last year I felt like I was restricted. Well, you saw it. It was like a weird situation with the subbing and substitution and all that, but we played through it, our group. We tried to make the best that we could with the time we had. So this year is different. He told me about how the rotations, how the substitution is going to be. He clarified all that for me, which made a lot of sense, because one thing I can tell you is that we're going to win a lot more games this year, and definitely for sure the second year, if we get our other year back.
Laura, last year, and here again, your two experiences are going to be different in this regard as well. Last year, the Greyhound women's basketball team got to the Lone Star Conference tournament and did something that a team hasn't done for a long time, which is to win a Lone Star Conference tournament game and get into the semifinals. What was the key? Why was last year's team as good as it turned out to be?
I feel like it was team chemistry. Towards the end of the year, we were playing our best basketball. We knew where we were going to go. We knew what the other person was going to do. We knew who was going to be open, and it really just came down to that. I mean, I really wish that we had been able to play in the NCAA tournament because I feel like we could have done some really great things there. Unfortunately, with everything going on, we were unable to, but I guess team chemistry was just the biggest thing, and we were all positive, and we knew what we wanted to accomplish, and we went out there and did it.
Well, Jose, I'll flip the coin because for you guys, you went into the last game of the season against Midwestern, and it was just whoever won that game was going to go to Lone Star Conference tournament, and it turned out Midwestern won. What was lacking? If you had to put your finger on one thing that you guys didn't do last year that could have gotten you into the tournament, what was lacking?
Well, the talent was there. We can all agree on that. But the main thing we were missing was discipline. And when I talked to Coach Owen, I wanted to make sure that if we're going to come back and if we're going to do this, we need to be the most disciplined team. Attention to detail wasn't there either last year. So we had so much, we had so many plays, we had so much to do, but we weren't good at any of them, if you know what I mean. So now that we're gonna shrink and only focus on motion offense, hopefully our chemistry is gonna get better because we actually gonna know our spots. We're actually gonna know, and we kind of know from last year because we got a lot of returners. We actually know what we do. In that sense, I'm hoping that everybody's going to buy in 100%. Also, that's another thing. I don't feel like every player last year bought in. We didn't really, you didn't like what we were doing on offense or defense. But if 4 of us are doing it and you're not doing it, it's not going to work. So I also told that to Coach Owen. Hopefully, I have a feeling this year is just going to be, if we get to play, it's going to be way better in that sense.
Laura, for you, sometimes in your career, you've been a starter. Sometimes you've come off the bench. Not every player can do that. What has allowed you to be as versatile as you have?
Just being positive. I am always going to have all of my teammates' backs, no matter what happens. If I'm in the game, it's going to be making the right pass or the right read off a screen. If I'm not in the game, it's going to be cheering for them on the bench, and that's part of what being a team is. We all should have each other's backs, and we should all be able to support one another, no matter what your personal situation on the court is. And so I really feel like that's a big thing.
Jose, for me personally, I had talked to some guys and they said, hey, we're bringing in a kid from Venezuela and he's pretty good. And I saw you at the beginning of the season and you were good, but by the end of the season you were even better and more productive. Was it just that the offense flowed more through you because kids knew what you were capable of doing, or were you just gaining confidence that I can do this in the Lone Star Conference?
To me, it was just, it's just how I entered the season. I entered the season knowing that I was coming from an ACL. I just got cleared 7 months right when we started the season. So I was like, on a different year, I probably would have been more stressed out, meaning I worked out this much over the summer. This needs to happen over the season. So that was a big learning experience for me because I already knew what I can do. I wasn't worried about if I was going to do it or not because I knew that I wasn't 100% me. But somehow having that mentality of whatever happens is fine helped me elevate my game towards the end of the season. And I guess now that I'm approaching the season the same way, not being confident in what I do, but not stressing about that I have to do this much, just letting it happen, I guess, it's helped me. So I think I'm gonna keep doing it this year too, see what happens. Not really stressing about that. But to answer your question, it's just what I I guess that's what I normally do. So I didn't see any difference. I didn't even know if they were giving me the ball more. I just wanted to play. I was happy that I was playing again to the level I was able to play before.
Laura, I'm a history professor, so I like talking history. When you came here, who was the women's basketball player that took you under her wing and said, I'll show you the ropes?
Oh man, pretty much everyone, but I have to say that I am probably the closest to Olivia Lewis and Jenna Melbrick. They have pretty much, they mentored me into the program, told me how things were going to be and what was going to go on, and they helped me through my first year, through everything that I was going through, no matter whether it was my personal life or things that were going on with basketball. They really did a lot for me, whether it was going up to the gym to get a few shots up or just sitting in the car and talking for long periods of time.
Jose, we'll ask you about last year. Who was the goodwill ambassador for you?
I guess Garrick Schrock. He, you know, if you know him, you know that you can always talk to him about anything. He really told me straight out what was it going to be like, and he didn't lie about one thing. He was right, he was spot on. I could tell him, like, when I realized my wife was pregnant, I told him, and like he just told me it's gonna be okay, man. Like, it's somebody that I can rely and on the court and off the court. So I give it to Garrick.
Laura, in the time period that you've been practicing with this year's team, what would you say has emerged as being kind of the character of this year's team?
Oh, geez.
I saved the tough questions for the end here.
That's okay. Probably our length. We have a lot of girls that are really tall, have long arms, and they're really athletic. So I would say that that's something that's that's going to be a big part of our game this year if we get to play, as well as our shooting ability. We have so many returners, and that is so good for us this year since we've had to kind of have a shortened season. But we have some great athletes on the team. We have a lot of length. We have some great shooters, and everyone wants to work together to win. Everyone wants to work together to get to play this year. And I think that that's a big key for us this year.
And Jose, I'll ask you the same question. In the couple of weeks that you've been practicing, what has emerged as being the characteristic of this year's Greyhound squad?
It's going to be shooting. We are a lot better shooters from last year. I'm not a shooter, but I was taking a lot of threes last year. But now we got actual shooters that are meant to make threes, and they've been showing in practice that they can do it. So being able, like, having guys like G, myself, being able to make plays, drive, and kick, that's going to be a big thing for us this year. And we got Marvin coming back. We got Josnier Colbas coming back too. So it's going to be, we're also going to still have that athleticism and that long. So it's going to be fun. Like, it's going to be better this year.
Jose and Laura, we acknowledge the fact that you're really good athletes, but you're also students. And so, Laura, what are you majoring in, and what do you hope to do with your degree?
I am an elementary education major, so I'll be able to teach anything kindergarten through 6th grade, K through 12 special education, and also K through 12 ESL, which is English as a second language. That is something that I am really passionate about, and I think that it would be so fun to go teach at a high school and teach ESL classes and hopefully coach basketball. Maybe they'll take me in since I've had a little bit of experience. But that's something that I would love to do, that or special education. That would just be amazing.
You know, I was thinking that the two of you could have a conversation between, you could say really bad things about me because Spanish is not I took Latin when I was in high school and college, so that was a real good career choice on my part. Jose, what are you majoring in and what do you hope to do?
So I'm a general business major. Not sure what I want to do afterwards. I'm all about the money, so hopefully when I get to play professional, I'm hoping on making investments and trying to make my money grow somehow, some way. I'm really into what's going on with the economy right now.
Well, Laura, in the minute we've got left, and since this is going to go nationwide when we put it on YouTube and Facebook, Got a shout out to send to anybody?
Oh, yes, of course. Both of my parents, Mark and Linda Rowe, my grandmother, Margaret Holland. I love her so much. And all of my friends and family, they've all helped me become the person and the player that I am today. And I am so grateful for all of the help and support that I've gotten along the way from all of them.
Well, Jose, I think I know the answer to this, but who are you going to send a shout out to?
Oh, well, I can start with my daughter. She gets to see this. Like, she doesn't understand, but hopefully later on she gets to see it, she understands. My wife and my family that's currently traveling, they're actually coming here to the U.S. to meet my granddaughter. So I want to wish them safe travels too when they get here.
Wow. Well, Laura, Jose, thanks so much for being my guest. We are all hoping that December 10th we can see the two of you in action in basketball, and let's hope that it's a banner year for Greyhound men and Greyhound women.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, well, that is going to wrap up the interview segment of Sportslook, so we'll clear the set, and I'll finish up with an overtime right now. Since we're doing a groundbreaking episode tonight with men's and women's basketball on at the same time, let's talk about breaking ground for men's basketball and for women's basketball. When was ground broken for women's basketball? The correct answer would be 1974-1975. In that first year, they went 6-10. When was ground broken for Greyhound men's basketball? That would be exactly 40 years before. 1934-1935, and the Greyhound men went 15-7. Now, before you draw conclusions, let me point something out. Greyhound women may have only won 6 games, but they had a quality win. They beat the University of New Mexico in their first season. Greyhound guys, yeah, they won 15 games, but the first game they played that year was against a civilian conservation corps camp called Camp Roosevelt. And the last game that they won, not making this up, was against Floyd High School. So you can't just judge things by a respective record. Well, that is going to wrap up a groundbreaking episode of Sportslook. Thanks to my guests, thanks to Laura and to Jose. So for those aforementioned people, this is Doc Elder saying, so long.